Yep.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can hear us and see us. We'll be starting in just a second. I haven't done a mic test. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's fine.
Let's see.
Well, I'm ready to go when you are.
Okay. Let's see. Actually, let me move this out. All right, I am now recording.
I'm now recording.
3, 2, 1, clap. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 380 for September 18th, 2025. Everyone, Dino Rubino here, joined with Zac Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. This week we'll be talking about lots of little changes to Windows 11 and specifically its inbox apps like Notepad and Paint, plus something about a speed test, which is kind of interesting. We'll talk about the new Xbox game mode for handhelds. We got our hands on it and we're able to install it on other devices besides the Ally X, I should say, the Xbox Ally X, which is coming out. Intel and Nvidia are getting married, apparently. So we'll talk about what that announcement means, which is actually a really, really big deal. And it's going to change laptops in a lot of ways. I think this is, well, I'll explain why I think it's kind of going on there. And plus, we'll do a reaction to Meta's announcement this week with their new Ray-Ban smart glasses. And you know how this ends. It always comes back to how Microsoft blew it. So, though to be fair, Apple blew it too. So, but it looks like Meta may get away with this. And yeah, we'll go through that. So, Zach, how are you doing on this fine Thursday?
I am not too bad. How are you?
Hanging in there. I can't believe it's September 18th. This year is going by very, very quickly. And I leave in a couple days for Hawaii for the Snapdragon Summit for Qualcomm. So we're expecting those new processors to be announced and demoed, and we'll try to answer everybody's questions. This is supposed to be a pretty big architectural shift in these chips. In other words, we're not expecting them to be like they're just slightly faster this year. Like there's like a lot more that's probably going on with them. Not to mention the AI story that is going to probably be a center focus for it. So, but overall, interesting stuff. 2025 nearing an end, already getting announcements for CES for January. So that's going to be kind of fun. But anyways, let's get to the news, I guess. What's going on with Windows 11, specifically the new Notepad feature that apparently is in testing?
Yeah, there was a lot of interesting little announcements around Windows 11 this week in regards to new features. So yeah, we will start with the Notepad stuff. Microsoft has announced that they're introducing support for generating text using on-device AI instead of the cloud. For those who may not be aware, Notepad in the last handful of months/year or so has been updated with AI capabilities. It has Copilot built in now, and it allows you to use, generate text/summarize text and even rewrite text that's already within Notepad using AI. But up until now, that feature has required an internet connection. It's reached out to the cloud to actually process those queries. But with this feature Microsoft has announced this week, that's no longer the case. The user, if you're using a Copilot Plus PC with an NPU, you will have the option to switch between using either the cloud-powered stuff called Enhanced in the app or on-device LLM/AI models. And so that allows the app to generate that stuff offline. You don't need to be connected to the internet. You don't have to reach out to the cloud. You don't have to be subscribed to Microsoft 365, because that's the other thing about the cloud-powered stuff, is that it requires a Microsoft 365 subscription, and it uses those AI tokens that you get a limited amount of every month. The on-device stuff doesn't require that. And so You can just use it whenever you want for free, forever, as long as you want without an internet connection. And that also means privacy-wise, it's a lot more secure for people who might be concerned about privacy. This feature processes stuff entirely locally. And so it's good to see Microsoft finally leveraging the NPU more across these inbox apps. It's something we've been saying for a while. Copilot Plus PCs launched last year, but it's taken a while for the NPU to really start sort of being utilized by apps in more than just sort of blockbuster ways, like with Recall and Click to Do. This is the kind of experience I've been waiting to see in apps, like just the ability to generate text in Notepad. Yeah, of course the NPU should be able to do that, and now with this update, it finally can. Excuse me. Yeah, this is really nice. So this has been announced for the Insider Canary and dev channels. It's in preview right now, which means it will roll out to more people and / the public over the coming months. And that's not the only thing Microsoft announced this week for the inbox apps and Windows as well. Microsoft also announced a big update for Paint, which introduces support for project files, very similar to Photoshop. So if you're a Photoshop user, you'll know that when you're working on a project that's in progress, you can save it as a Photoshop file, so to speak. And you can open that Photoshop file on any PC that has Photoshop installed, and you can get back to editing your photo or image with all of its different layers and effects and whatnot. And then eventually export that and save it as an actual image, whether that be a PNG, JPEG, etc., etc. Paint hasn't had that capability. Usually, when you're editing in Paint, you have to finish what you're working on here. Otherwise, when you save it, it will save as an image, and all of your layer work and whatnot will be lost because Paint wasn't keeping track of that. But that's changing now with the new Paint update. Paint supports project files, and so you can save a project as a work in progress thing and save it as a .paint file. And so you can take that with you. You can open it on a different computer, and it will bring everything with you, and you'll be able to see all of your open layers and edits and whatnot, and make further changes there as well. So this is another step towards making Paint, I wouldn't say a viable Photoshop alternative, but a free Photoshop alternative. Obviously, Photoshop's very expensive.
I mean, it sounds like it more competes almost with GIMP at this point. Or
sure, yeah. That's probably fair because GIMP is. I'd even argue GIMP's quite complicated in itself in general. Like I've tried to use GIMP before and I've never been able to get used to it. I'm not a big fan of GIMP.
Same.
I think Paint is now all of a sudden striking this very nice balance between simplicity and capability. It is able to, be that simple editor for just quickly making whatever it is, circling something or highlighting something or cropping something. But it can also now do some advanced things like remove a background or handle a PNG or transparent image. It couldn't do that in the olden days, if you remember. And so even layers now, you can have different transparent images on top of each other, and you can create collages or whatever it is you need to create with layers, and you can now save them as project files and open them to continue working on at a later point. It really is just becoming a very handy tool for quickly editing photos more than just cropping them. Like you can do some small advanced things here and there, but nothing too crazy. And I think for most people, that's all people need. That's all I need when I'm using photo. I don't use Photoshop for anything really other than cropping or removing the background, and Photoshop can basically
which is way I don't know why you've never really used Elements then, because Elements is like,
no, I know,
is just that, right? It's like it's like the MS Paint of Photoshop. Yes, because it has all the major features of Photoshop, but not all the complicatedness, but it's very capable too. But I find it way easier to use. Yeah, and GIMP is just like, GIMP is very powerful, but it's almost like too powerful. Like I don't need to do that much, but there are a lot of people that do and enjoy it, and it's basically free, I think. So it's it's a great alternative. But I'll say Microsoft's edge here, of course, is going to be the AI stuff. So I know I've seen it in release preview. I currently don't have it on this computer, but I've seen it in my other ones. I know I've showed the screenshot with you before where they've announced, like, they're basically bringing back the co-creator, which like sucked before. And if you don't know, that was a thing where you can type in a prompt of what you are looking to draw, or you could draw something on the screen and then use AI and tell it what it is, and it'll create an AI image out of that based on your own work, which is kind of neat. And it never worked well, but it was a brilliant idea. And I think they removed it, but that's coming back along with some other AI features and stuff. And I think that's where Microsoft's strength is going to be. It's going to be in that very popular category of like image generation, right? which we just saw this week. Google's making a big deal with its Nano Banana, I think it's called, which is such a strange name, but it's taking sort of image generation to a new level. And Microsoft still is kind of competing there. I guess the issue they got to always face with this stuff is how much should it keep as free, then how much of it is tied to your account and a pro model or something like that. So they got to find that kind of balance.
Yeah. So those are the two new sort of big updates coming to Paint and Notepad. I'm really glad to see Microsoft sort of giving these inbox apps attention. It's so strange to see how these apps sort of stand out and shine in regards to what an inbox app can be like. And then on the flip side, there's apps like Outlook, which are just web apps that don't even align with Windows 11's design and are just slower. And I just don't understand how that's been allowed to happen. Paint, Notepad, even the Microsoft Store app itself, they're all fantastic. Then you've got Outlook, which is like, oh God, why has this happened?
I mean, I'm going to go off on a thing here too. I don't really mind the new Outlook app. I don't.
This is why Microsoft gets away with things like this, because of people like you.
I really don't like. It's hit me with. I don't really love the new WhatsApp either. Like
a web app, yeah,
that's like that seemed kind of unnecessary. Like I noticed a bigger deal with that than I do with the new Outlook app. Like once it's running, I think I don't know. It's got way more features now than the old version did. That's for sure. I think it looks a little bit better too. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not on that camp of like hating on the new Outlook, but hey, everybody's a little bit different. So
yeah. So another feature that wasn't officially announced but was discovered in the latest preview builds this week for Windows 11 is a feature that looks to allow you to run a network speed test straight from the taskbar. Everyone's been there. There's been a moment where you've either connected to a new network or you're having internet problems and you want to quickly test how fast your internet is. I think most people do what I do and you just go to speedtest.net and do it from there. But Windows is getting its own shortcut to do that now. So eventually you'll be able to right click on the networking icon on the taskbar, and there'll be an option in that context menu that says perform a network speed test. And you click on that and it will bring you into your web browser of choice and take you to the Bing network speed test. Now, I know that sounds terrible on the surface, but I believe that's actually powered by Speedtest. It's using the same Speedtest servers, so it's just a Bing interface over speedtest.net, and so it basically does the same thing. And I think that's really cool. It'll be in that context menu, and it will also be in the Wi-Fi flyout in the quick settings panel. There'll be a button next to the refresh button there where it allows you to click on and perform a network speed test. Our news editor Sean Endicott wrote a sort of companion piece to that news this week, sort of saying, I can see why Microsoft doing it, and it's kind of nice, but it would be nice if it was a little bit more integrated experience-wise. Like, I don't know why it has to go into my web browser. Why can't it just pop up a little like mini Edge window or whatever browser window, and just do the speed test in the corner of the screen? I don't need to have the full-blown website open to do that. And I do agree with that. It would be nice if it was a little bit more integrated in regards to the flow of things. But I still sort of appreciate the fact that they are adding a network speed test shortcut that you can gain access to straight from the taskbar, because that does save me the hassle of going to my browser and typing speedtest.net and then going through it that way. So that's a cool feature Microsoft is working on as well. I mean, Dan, have you got any thoughts on that?
So the Bing speed test has been there forever, right? It's always been a feature in Bing where you could just, in fact, if you just go to Bing and type in speed test, you'll get to it. So yeah, in that sense, it's not new. They're just kind of giving you a shortcut to it. It does make you wonder, like what you're kind of saying, like, couldn't they just, being it's a PWA, it would be a PWA, couldn't they just have a little pop-up that's powered by Edge, just like Outlook? I think they probably could do that, and maybe they will at some point. I do agree, though, that would be a little bit nicer. But I think it's a cool integration, because it's just it saves you. First of all, most people don't know that if you just go to Bing and type in speed test, you can get a speed test. In fact, a lot of people don't even use Bing, right? So there's that whole thing. So it's another way to kind of get people into Bing and to use it. Plus, it's a nice little shortcut. But I think it's a good idea. I do wonder, if we're going to see a little bit more of a push for 5G. As we were discussing on our earlier call, HP is pushing their new service called HP Go. Now, this is mostly for enterprise right now, but I'm pretty positive they're going to try to push it into the consumer space. And I'll share my thoughts. I don't have the laptop yet with it, but I should maybe tomorrow, and I'll be traveling with it. But it's kind of a game changer. It's the biggest thing with 5G and laptops is in the United States, it's a real pain to sign up for like a data service just for your laptop. Plus, it can be expensive and people don't want contracts. Like maybe they just want to use it once in a while. It's gotten better, but it's still not easy. So their new system is this: when you ordered a laptop online and you order it with 5G, it's going to come pre-installed, and when you basically turn it on and open for the first time, it's going to be automatically connected to 5G. And how they're doing this is HP, for all intents and purposes, has become its own MVNO. So they're riding on the backs of other carriers, but providing the service themselves, just like Mint Mobile does, or Cricket, or Invisible, or one of the other ones. The difference here, apparently, is that they're using all three networks. And so the laptop now will dynamically shift and switch between those networks based on the strength of the connection, which is like kind of mind blowing. I've never seen that before in a laptop. And it costs like $19 a month for unlimited 5G data, which again that's actually a pretty good price. It's not cheap, but right now it's for enterprise. And you don't need to do a yearly contract. You can just pay it month to month or 3 months in advance or whatever like that. But this seems to be a bigger push for HP into the 5G space. And so making Windows laptops, a little bit more friendly, because that one of the things you do, when you have a 5G laptop is you often check the speed to see how, quickly it's going. And so I'm wondering if this is tied together to that. I'm very excited about this. I think this is a kind of a game-changing thing. It's weird too, HP's doing this. They have like their own app that lights up and controls your account and all that kind of stuff. But this is potentially the kind of thing we need for 5G and laptops to take off. Now, if you don't want to do that, of course, like you already have a service, you can still drop in a SIM card. You can do an eSIM. You can bring whatever network you want to it. So you're not being forced to use it. But if you want to, you can. And I think that's a pretty cool thing. So I'm hoping that Microsoft tweaks Windows here and there a little bit more to better support 5G for these scenarios where people are going to use these kind of tools and stuff.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. And then Microsoft also released a new release preview build a few days ago, which does sort of give us an idea as to what's coming in next month's feature drop, October's feature drop / security updates. Quite a few sort of more improvements over last month, including popular action tags and click to do. We were getting the ability to move the hardware indicators of brightness and volume airplane mode from the bottom of the screen to the top left or the top center. File Explorer is getting more action, AI actions, and there's some other quality of life improvements, as well as the emoji 16.0 release. And so not a huge update, but there's a lot of nice quality of life stuff coming. The Xbox controller will be able to open the task view button when you press and hold the Xbox button now. Some legacy dialogues have been updated with UI, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's nice to see as well. And then lastly, to cap off the Windows segment of this week's podcast, we were able to get Microsoft's new handheld gaming mode for Windows 11 running on existing handhelds. We sort of knew this was going to be possible, but it turns out it's possible a lot earlier than we were kind of expecting it was going to be. I have it running on the original Asus ROG Ally with the Z1E processor in it. But people online have been trying it with the MSI Claw, with the Legion Go, and other Windows handhelds that are available on the market, and it does appear to work on all of them. The processor getting it enabled is slightly different for some of them, but for the most part, it's a very straightforward process. It requires using ViveTool, which is a third-party tool that can manipulate and configure feature control within Windows, and then you have to do a minor registry edit, and then from there it's done, and you can go into Windows settings and enable it, and all the bits are there, and it's exactly what we were expecting it to be. It's the Xbox app running in full screen in place of the traditional Windows desktop, so the taskbar and start menu and wallpaper doesn't load in. Those are the only real optimizations it makes in regards to behind the scenes stuff. As I've been testing, I was really curious to see what is Windows doing to make this more performant. And the answer is it's kind of being cheeky about it. Yes, it does not load in things like the taskbar and start menu, But those are so minor on the system that there isn't really an impact to that. It's great that they're no longer loaded in, but you don't see any performance gains in games with that alone. How the performance gains come into play is through the fact that when in the full screen mode, Windows sets all of your startup apps to disabled. So things like OneDrive, Copilot, the Microsoft Edge thing, because for those who don't know, Windows is set to run Microsoft Edge in the background by default, and that allows the browser to start up faster when you click the icon. That gets disabled, and then also all your third-party startup apps get disabled as well. So if you have Discord installed or Steam or GOG that are set to run at startup, those also get disabled. So when you boot into your handheld gaming device with Windows in the Xbox mode, you don't have any startup apps. You just see the Xbox app, and the system is a lot faster as a result. It has a lot more free RAM and CPU resources to allocate to your game. And so in our testing, I benchmarked Shadow of the Tomb Raider in handheld gaming mode. We're getting 38 frames per second on average. And then if I booted into the desktop and ran the same benchmark with all of the startup apps configured as default, we've 10 frames less per second, 29 average, which is a huge difference. But that's only when you leave Windows to do its thing in regards to startup apps. If you're somebody who's already curating your startup apps on a handheld running in Windows desktop mode, you likely won't see a performance difference. I did the same test in desktop mode with no startup apps, and the benchmark was exactly the same, 38 frames per second on average. And so the performance gains Microsoft are touting really do just come from the fact that it's going to disable all of your startup apps. That's not the end of the world. It's better than nothing, I guess. And the real sort of star of the show is the UIs. It's the fact that you can now navigate through the system and launch any game from any storefront using the gamepad controls. Currently, you kind of have to navigate clunkily through the Windows desktop interface to get into different storefronts to launch your different games. With the new Xbox app and full screen mode, there's now just one location where all of your games appear. And so that's really nice. And that just makes using these Windows-powered handhelds feel more like a Nintendo Switch. Or a Steam Deck, a more sort of comprehensive experience for gamers on these devices. Now, it does currently only work on handhelds. I believe there's a check in the system that looks for how big your screen is, and if it's under 10 inches, it will enable. If your screen's more than 10 inches, it will not. Although, to my knowledge, you can plug this into an external monitor or TV, and the interface will still be there. But if you try to run this on, say, a gaming PC, like a tower PC or whatever it is, and you have it hooked up to a display that's larger than 10 inches, as far as I'm aware, this won't work without some additional hacks that simulate your screen size and sort of trick Windows into thinking it's smaller than it is. But that's a whole nother sort of issue. But for now, at least, it seems to be only for handhelds, which is a little bit of a shame, because I think this could benefit gaming PCs as well. If you're somebody who is using a gaming PC in their living room in place of a console, this would be great. But unfortunately, that doesn't appear to be it doesn't appear to be in scope, at least for this first version. Keep in mind, this is supposed to be launching first on the Xbox Ally and Xbox Ally X next month in October, and it's not supposed to roll out officially for other handhelds until sometime in 2026. And so maybe between now and then, Microsoft will add support for larger screens, and that could, trickle up to tower PCs and whatnot. But at least for now, it is just for handhelds, and it's quite good. I think it makes these Windows handhelds survivable. They're no longer a horrible experience. And I think, I think SteamOS will still be better in regards to performance and efficiency. But I think for most people who aren't really bothered about that and aren't interested in reinstalling an OS, this will be a godsend, this new experience for those people. And so that's good to see as well. Do you have any gaming handhelds lying around, Dan? Are you curious about this, or?
I got like 2 or 3, but I haven't played.
Yeah.
But they're all right now. They all are running SteamOS. So I haven't been able to. Yeah, I totally gave up. I think this idea, though, is like the smart idea, right? It's what most people are basically just asking for anyway, which is like, just give me a true gaming mode.
Yeah,
where it reboots, it doesn't load a bunch of the background apps and stuff that you don't need for gaming. Keeps the drivers basic and stuff, and just gives you an environment where you just have a little bit extra memory and RAM, because we've all seen it. You boot up a PC, you go to Task Manager, and you look at what's running in the background, and you see stuff popping up 20%, 5%, 9%. And sometimes it'll be like indexing your files, and it's just like, yeah, if you wait long enough, Usually that stuff subsides, but then there's always these kind of background tasks in Windows that's running. And this is done mostly because our new processors now have so many cores that you can offload the stuff to your low power cores, and it doesn't really make a huge difference. That is until you want a game. We've mentioned, when we're talking about you doing this, it was like, there's two ways to really make your games faster, right? One is like you upgrade the hardware in it, which is pretty impossible to do in a handheld, or you overclock the chip, which is possible. You kind of can do that. The other thing is you just optimize the hell out of the system so that you just have all the memory and RAM you need, and the CPU is not being bottlenecked, and the same thing with the GPU, right? And so that's the route that they're going here. I do think it's something that they should probably bring to, all laptops. Like, it should just be a thing in Windows, just called gaming mode, and it'll tell you, like, listen, we're going to reboot your computer. Nothing's good. A lot of your core stuff isn't going to load. So if you want to go back to that, you'll just have to reboot your computer again or something. I think people would be happy with that. Then what they should do is come out with, and which is what they're probably doing, is some sort of Xbox handheld OS, right?
Yeah.
That is akin to Steam OS, which isn't really running Windows, but it'll still be able to run Windows games, because of the way it's set up and stuff. And then that you restrict to your handheld devices and stuff like that. And you make it something exclusive to that. It's something that people on laptops may still want too, but it's going to be, who's going to really want to install like a very bare bones operating system instead of a full Windows kind of thing, right? And I think if you take that two-tier approach, I think that solves a lot of the problems. Because we mentioned this like earlier about how, the problem with the full mini OS idea is it comes down to a licensing problem. When people buy laptops, they're buying the license for Home or Pro, but you would have to have a different license for handhelds then, and you couldn't charge as much. And so they would be losing some money. Because right now, if you're selling a handheld with a Windows 10 Home license, you're getting a certain amount of money. But presumably what they do with this thing, they may charge the same price. It just be like, listen, it's going to be the same price as Home, but it's better performance, right? Or maybe it's like slightly cheaper for the game maker. But they can at least do that and have that conversation. Whereas, the thing we were talking about earlier, where it is right now, you can kind of do that on any PC and stuff. I mean, you can already kind of do this yourself, right? Like, there's a way, like, you can even go into safe mode with networking, I suppose, if you want to, and load up drivers one by one. Like, there are probably ways of doing this, but I don't know. It's a cool idea. I'd like to try it on my handhelds. Maybe I'll get around to it at some point, but I haven't been able to play many games lately. So,
yeah. Okay, so I think that just about does it for all of the Windows news this week. I guess there is one more topic we can briefly talk about, and that is Consumer Reports basically suggesting to Microsoft that they should probably support Windows 10 for longer than they are planning to currently. So as we all know, next month, October 14th, is when Windows 10 mainstream support comes to an end. Microsoft has been very clear about this for a long time now. The OS is 10 years old. It's time to get a move on. Time to go to somewhere else, whether that be Windows or not. Microsoft wants you gone from Windows 10. There are some sort of temporary sort of life jackets that Microsoft are throwing out to Windows 10 users, such as the extended support program, which allows Windows 10 users an additional year of security updates if they agree to sync their PC settings with the cloud via a Microsoft account, or pay $30/1,000 Microsoft reward points. That will get you an additional year of free security, or not free, that's just a year of security updates. But if you don't do that, if you don't agree to do any of that, you will be out of support come October 14th. And while immediately nothing will change for you, Windows 10 will continue to work, and your apps will continue to work, your drivers will continue to work. Over the course of 2026 into 2027, things will start to probably stop working as intended in regards to support from first and third party apps and drivers. This has been the case with every version of Windows that eventually falls out of support. Things don't change immediately, but over time, one app developer here or a driver maker there will announce that they're no longer supporting Windows 10 as of this date. And so your apps will slowly stop being supported with new features, or your drivers will stop getting updates, and eventually your PC just becomes old and decrepit and out of support majorly. Also, while there will likely not be an immediate concern regarding security from October 14th, as soon as a security vulnerability, a major one, is discovered in the kernel or the Windows 10, OS in general, Microsoft is under no obligation to patch that for you. And if you're not part of the ESU program and you're still using Windows 10 connected to the internet, you will be at risk of that vulnerability. If a bad party or somebody comes in and installs malware in your system that takes advantage of that vulnerability that's been discovered, your PC could be hosed, your data could be stolen. And I don't want to fearmonger here, because obviously that sounds quite end of the worldy, because there's still 400 million PCs running Windows 10. It is a risk. It is something that could happen if you're not careful running Windows 10 once it's out of support and not part of the ESU program. But Consumer Reports says that they reckon that Microsoft isn't being very fair, and that they should continue supporting Windows 10 for longer, for free, for all users until Windows 10's market share is lower. I'm curious on your thoughts on this, Dan, but I disagree. I think it's not Microsoft's fault that there are still 400 million Windows 10 PCs. It's 10 years old, this operating system. It's a decade old. Do you know how old that is in tech world? It's 100 years old. These people should have been off Windows 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I feel like Microsoft keeps extending an olive branch, and it's like, oh, it's going to end. All right, you can get an extra year of security if you do this, and companies can get an extra 3 years if they do. Like they are making it more palatable, and it's like not new, but I feel like it's one of those things. Unless they, they're going to probably people be like, Microsoft should buy about a new Windows 11 PC. There are probably people going to be saying that next, right? So it's just like, yeah, you kind of can't win. It's also a shame too, because of the hardware. It's just like, if you're running a Windows 10 laptop, I got news for you. These new Windows 11 ones are like night and day difference between it, and you're going to have a way better experience. Now, of course, the issue is finances, and I already can afford it. I'm fully aware of that. And let's be honest, the market right now is pretty much teetering on recession. And so people are probably not thinking about buying a PC, which for many people is more of a luxury still, unless you're a gamer. But yeah, it's in a tough situation. But technically, it still runs. You can extend security updates and kick the can down the road. You can just be careful on what you click on and what you open. You can get a third-party antivirus service. That's another option. We have a whole page up with giving people options. You can, of course, switch to Linux if you wanted to, put Linux on your PC. You could put Chrome OS on it if you can figure that out. I think you could still do that. So there are options there for people. And there are ways of bypassing the supposed requirements for Windows 11 to force it on your PC if you want to go that route, right? So there are there are a lot of options here for people. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's just, no matter what they do, no one just likes when an operating system ends, especially when it has this much market share. But 10 years. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a long time, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like no matter what they do. And Consumer Reports, I like them a lot. That's their job. They're looking out for consumers. And sure, why not write the letter to the CEO and be like, please don't do this. But, they're a business, right? They're not in work of charity. So it's just listen, we can't no one does this with Apple either. That's the thing, right?
Yeah, and Apple are just ruthless when it comes to dropping support for things. They will 6 years and you're done. It's crazy.
Yep. Yeah, we're just not doing. No one cares about that. So it's just but probably because people who buy Apple tend to have more money. So it's just oh, I got to buy a new laptop. Okay, here you go. Here's $2,000. Thank you.
Yeah. I find this quite interesting. So Consumer Reports said in their report, I guess, They said the decision to make Windows 11 compatible with existing hardware and to do so with only 4 years' notice is incompatible with consumer expectations and Microsoft's own history. Microsoft has long focused on backwards compatibility for Windows, ensuring it can run on older hardware. This means that consumers could expect to be able to run the latest version of Windows for at least a dozen years and maybe more. If you bought a PC with Windows 7 pre-installed in 2010, you were able to upgrade it to Windows 8 in 2012 and then to Windows 10 in 2015. And many of those devices can still run Windows 10 in 2025. This is a little bit deceiving what they're saying here because they're implying Windows 10 was released in 2015 and then never touched again. That's not what happened. Windows 10 received at least 4 or even 5 different versions of Windows within its own lifespan, just all branded Windows 10. Remember, there was a period of time where Microsoft was releasing 2 new versions of Windows a year with new platform releases, not just enablement packages and whatnot. These were full-blown new versions of Windows twice a year. That was happening, and all of those devices experienced it. And I'm assuming in Consumer Reports is not suggesting that laptops from 2010 should be able to run Windows 11. That's outrageous. If that's what they're suggesting, there's no way.
And plus, it's like the thing is there's a lot of the hardware security requirements, which is like something that companies are always bashed on. It's like it's security risks, and so this is a way for Microsoft to like help cover their butt. Is like, listen, you need TPM 2.0, you need these other features, you need modern processors that don't have these flaws in them. Like, you need this stuff to be secure so that if something goes wrong, you can't blame us for it, right? But if like they just allow this stuff on older unsecured hardware and then stuff goes wrong, people are gonna be like, come on, Microsoft, what the hell?
Yeah,
and they're gonna
it's
blame
always
them
Microsoft's
for it.
fault.
Because they're not going to take responsibility and be like, granted, I'm running a PC that's 15 years old, but it should have all the security features in 2025 that a new 2025 laptop has. And it's just like, there's been hardware advancements that go hand in hand with this. And I get it. Like, for a lot of people, they're like, yeah, I play games, I don't care about the security. It's like, yeah, okay, I understand that. It's one of those things you don't care about until someone puts ransomware on your computer, right? And then all of a sudden you start to care about it. But like for most people, they'll never experience that. So it's just like, it's like having to pay car insurance. It's like, it sucks. It's like, I've never been in a car accident. Why do I have to pay it? And then it's like that one time you get into a car accident, you're like, oh, okay, I thought I have insurance then. So it's, yeah, I feel like no matter what they do here, and plus it's just fun to pick on them because it's Microsoft.
Yeah.
It's just like they're one of the largest corporations in the world, and listen, you and I criticize them all the time. We're about to do it again after this story. And it's just like, they're already laying off a lot of people. The way they treat their employees is, very controversial. The whole AI, how it's affecting their workforce, I think is legit criticism, right? Yeah, but this is just not one of them. I think it's just one of those things that people want to complain about. So
yeah, and I'd like to remind everybody that everyone thinks Windows 10 is the gold standard suddenly. That's not what people thought 10 years ago. Right. Windows 10 was very, very rough in 2015. It didn't take, I think the anniversary update was when it finally was like in an okay state. But that first year, Windows 10 was not great. And so this happens every time and it will blow over. And look, Microsoft is smart enough to look at the data and weigh up whether or not they should open the floodgates and allow more devices to upgrade to Windows 11. They've obviously done the calculations and determined that no, it doesn't make sense for us to do that. The security stuff is more important. And they have, they've stuck with that. I remember in 2021 when Windows 11 was announced, the system requirements were controversial, and they are still controversial today. They will probably always be controversial, at least for another half a decade, while the rest of the Windows 10 fleet dies out. But yeah, and I think it took everyone by surprise because it had been such a long time since Microsoft actually upped the Windows system requirements in any meaningful way. Consumer Reports is right that for a long time between 2007, I want to say, and 2015, or even 2020, Windows system requirements didn't really change. You could run Windows on a PC from 2009 in 2020 with the latest version of Windows 10, and it was fine. Windows 11 is the first version of Windows in a long time to come along and go, actually, no, you can't do that anymore. These old PCs are old. Let's get them out of the way. Let's get everyone onto some new stuff. And It won't happen again for a while, I think. I think the system requirements that Windows 11 have set will be the baseline for the next decade easily. If a Windows 12 shows up next year or the year after, I would be shocked if it ups the system requirements any further than it already has been. I don't think it will happen. I think all Windows 11 PCs and all of the Windows 10 PCs that were upgraded to Windows 11 officially will be able to run a Windows 12 in the next half a decade. Yeah, I just don't think I don't see that changing again for a while. But I think every now and then it's necessary for this to happen because otherwise nothing will progress. Nothing will be innovated on. We will still be stuck using, dual core CPUs from 2009 and with horrible LCD low res screens because nobody wants to upgrade their laptops because Windows 14 still runs on an Intel Pentium from 2004. It's like,
Right.
okay, great. How has this helped anyone? So yeah, that's I think the Windows 10 and the Windows stuff in general for this week. Let's move on.
Also, I was just going to say, it's
Okay.
also another complaint that what people will have is like because the OS becomes more complicated over time, putting Windows 11 on a Centrino chip. Like, what are they going to do? This thing sucks. The performance is
Yeah.
terrible. Microsoft
Yeah.
doesn't know how to code anything. Blah 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 blah. And people are gonna, I'm switching to Linux. It's just gonna be like, okay. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of annoying.
Everyone's already switching to Linux. Didn't you hear, Dan? A second
Oh,
Windows
I know.
10
This is it. This is the
Linux will
year.
take over. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
happening. Right. Let's talk about Intel and Nvidia because this is a really interesting story that sort of broke earlier today. Nvidia and Intel have announced a joint partnership that will see them develop x86 Intel CPUs fused with RTX GPUs. These chips will be dubbed Intel x86 RTX SoCs, and they are designed to sort of compete with AMD's APUs. For those who don't know, AMD's APUs have both the CPU and GPU merged into one compact chip. Up until now, if you've been using an Intel device with a NVIDIA graphics card, that motherboard has two chips. It has a CPU chip and a separate dedicated GPU chip. And there's pros and cons for and against doing either way. The pros, obviously, doing it how Intel's been doing it up until now is that it's modular. OEMs can, have one CPU and then swap out the GPU for a more powerful one if they want to offer different SKUs, for example. But on the opposite side, they're not as efficient, especially when it comes to memory bandwidth and whatnot, whereas APUs are more efficient. And so that's why you've seen AMD take off quite successfully in things like the handheld market in the last couple of years, because their APUs are quite good in regards to efficiency. So they're great for mobile devices such as handhelds and laptops, and they offer similar performance when it comes to GPU power as well as CPU power. And so Intel and Nvidia have announced that they're basically going to do the same thing. They're going to build Intel chips with GPUs within the chip. They are fused together. RTX GPUs with that as well via the NVLink. And while they haven't given a time frame for this, it should be within the next year or two, as development sort of spins up, and these companies are able to build these products together. This deal also includes Nvidia buying $5 billion worth of Intel stock in an attempt to inject some cash, I guess, because as we all know, Intel has been suffering quite significantly as of late. So this does seem like Nvidia throwing Intel a bit of a lifeline. And also, Intel will build Nvidia some enterprise-grade chips for their AI and enterprise efforts as well. I'm really curious on your thoughts on this deal, Dan. Do you think this is just all about trying to give Intel the best chance it can, or do you think that there's more to this?
I think it's a smart move. Intel's not in a great position right now.
Yeah.
We're just talking about Qualcomm's about to announce its new laptop chips, which I've gone on record numerous times saying I still think this current generation of Snapdragon X chips are the best things out there right now for what I need computers for. They're not the best for gaming, though it's improving in gaming, and it's a big focus for both Qualcomm and Microsoft to make gaming better with ARM, and it's getting there. So I think Qualcomm has just got like a lot of momentum. They are also very strong in AI because they've been doing it on their phones for years. And so, they came out the gate. They were the first ones with the Copilot Plus PCs. I expect these new chips to have even more power for the NPU. Meanwhile, Intel has like a very sporadic, like some of their chips have NPUs, some don't. And the divisions with their current laptop chips is really kind of weird. And so they need to get that in order. And then, of course, you have AMD, who I'm not a big fan of AMD stuff. They're great on desktop gamers like them, and that's fine. I'm not in that market though, so I like premium ultrabook type laptops, and there are basically no AMD ones there. So it's just like it's Intel or Qualcomm usually for those. I will say Intel's current gen laptop chips are actually pretty solid. Like they get really good battery life on them. It's comparable. It's approaching Qualcomm, but it's not quite there. But it's still very long. Like you can get 10, 11 hours in some laptops easily now. But I think this was, we know gaming is always a big field when it comes to PCs. It's one of the recession type proof areas too. So I think AMD is also very good in GPUs. So I think Nvidia teaming up with Intel here helps a lot. I think both companies are itching to go harder into the handhelds. We already do have Intel One handheld, and it's actually pretty good. It's actually we consider it to be one of the best handhelds out there, although it's hard to find. But then it's a market too that I could see Nvidia wanting to kind of really get into. So I see this as a interesting opportunity. They're going to be able to really make, in theory, kind of the best of both worlds for a laptop, right? It's going to be something that has Intel's flexibility to run basically any app that's out there for Windows, which some might argue is still an issue with Qualcomm and ARM. And then they're going to get the power of Nvidia, who is the master of GPUs and gaming. And you combine those two things and make an efficient system that presumably maybe even lowers the price a little bit. Like that really is a enviable position compared to AMD and Qualcomm. It gives them something different. So, but if Intel was super strong right now in a great position, they wouldn't need to do this. So it is a position of weakness, but they're in a rough spot. So I think I think consumers will benefit from this. For me, that's all that matters. We don't necessarily speak for Intel and Qualcomm as companies, and like how they're doing. We're really more focused on, all right, how do consumers benefit from this? And I think they're going to benefit a lot from this. So I think really that's all that kind of matters.
Yeah, I agree. I will be really interested to see how Microsoft sort of adopts any future chip with this, fusing of Nvidia and Intel in a Surface, because obviously it feels like Microsoft has really sort of prioritized Qualcomm in the last year or so when it comes to Surface hardware. And so much so that's kind of killed off the Surface Laptop Studio, because obviously Qualcomm's chips don't support dedicated GPUs, and Intel has only shipped one Copilot Plus capable CPU in the last year or so. And so Microsoft is sort of like, where would this Intel Nvidia chip go in the Surface line? Could it go in a Surface Laptop Studio 4 or 3 if they ever actually do decide to return to that, or could they do like a Laptop Pro?
Because like the Laptop Studio, the issue right now is they would have to put in the Core Ultra like H series chip, which is a fine chip, but that chip also goes into super thin Ultrabooks. So then they have their Kaby Lake and their like laptop, like the gaming laptop processors. So they could put that in there and hook it up to an RTX 5070, right? Like they could do that absolutely, and it'd probably be a pretty good experience, but it doesn't have an NPU.
Right, that's the problem.
And Microsoft is absolutely not going to release Surface Laptop Studio with no NPU and no Copilot Plus ability, right? They're not going to do it. And that's what kind of like the issue right now with that. So there is no real chip you can kind of put into Laptop Studio. I guess maybe you could do AMD if they want to switch to that, but
it would be nice to see what Microsoft do an AMD laptop Surface again. So they sort of toyed with them a few years ago, the Laptop 3 and the Laptop 4. But
I tell you, I think a lot of it comes down to like
enterprise.
Intel just has a lot of cool advanced features.
And
now, Microsoft doesn't use all that stuff, like the human presence detection. They don't use it, but that's an Intel thing, and that's a Qualcomm thing. That's not an AMD thing, though, for whatever reason.
I also just think Microsoft's partnership with Intel and Qualcomm is just stronger. I just don't think, I feel like Microsoft and AMD are like, they see each other in the corridor, they say hi, but that's about it. It's like they work in the same company, but they're not really friends. That's how it feels. But I'm really interested to see where this goes. I'm a huge fan of Qualcomm and Snapdragon X as well, but I'm not an Intel hater. I would like to see Intel do well, because it means if competition's well, then everyone benefits, right? It's if you know it doesn't help us. That's why Intel's where they are, because they were on top for such a long time that they got complacent and they got lazy and they stopped innovating, and now look where they are. They're struggling to survive more or less. So it would be great to have Intel come back into the fight and actually be competitive alongside Qualcomm and AMD and Apple, as the sort of four big silicon chip makers on the market, because that's good for the end user, I think, and it allows us to experience
Intel
innovation.
did get a big, so Intel stock has been pretty much flat for the last couple months, hovering around $25 a share, but it jumped up to almost $32 a share today. It's come down a little bit from there, but it's up 28% for the month. So they saw a pretty substantial rise due to the Nvidia investment, and it's important that Intel kind of survives anyway, because they are building the new fabs.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Intel just doesn't like design chips like AMD and Qualcomm. They make them. Yeah, they actually make the chips with their fabs, and that's an expenditure that none of those companies have to deal with. But if like Intel were to go away, that would just leave TSMC. And TSMC right now is mostly just in Hong Kong, and you have China. It's like that's a very dangerous situation. So it's a lot of national interest in the U.S. that Intel sticks around, and Intel could just become a foundry and just make chips. Like that could happen, but I don't think so. In fact, if you look at their quarterly reports, last time I checked, their laptop sales and chips weren't bad. Like they were actually pretty good, and it was just their other areas. It was the investments with the foundry and some of their side projects that they had to do, which were causing issues. But they're still the go-to choice. Like this quarter, there have been a ton of Intel laptops and desktop PCs. So they're not hurting there. They're hurting in other ways that's affecting them. But what we care about, their actual processors, still doing pretty well, still in all the major brands, still in all the top ones. You just mentioned with the Surface and Business, right? Surface Pro and Surface Laptop both have Intel variants that are available. It goes to show you something, that they're still in high demand. So they're not going anywhere. But yeah, they're definitely in a tough position.
Yeah. So we'll keep you updated on this partnership. I think some interesting things will come of it in the following months. I believe Intel and Nvidia are doing a press conference at some point today where they will discuss the partnership in a little bit more detail. I don't know how much they're going to be able to share, because as we've discussed, I think timeline wise, we're probably a ways away from any sort of buyable product as a consumer, but it's good to know that it is being worked on, and we should hopefully see what they're working on in around a year's time. All right, lastly, let's talk about Meta and their newly announced Ray-Ban display glasses. We've kind of known this was coming. Earlier this year, Google announced Android XR, and they sort of just demoed a pair of glasses with a display built in that looked mostly like glasses. But Meta today announced their own competitor to that, and I think everyone's early hands-on impressions seem to suggest what Meta's doing here is very, very good. Dan, I know you've been tuned in on this story.
Yeah, so I've been watching some of the reactions to it, and so let's get this out of the way. First of all, I think the glasses are still pretty hideous looking. I would not look good in wearing these things. We've joked around before. I don't look good in most glasses anyway, but they look like the what you see in movies with mobsters and Italian guys wear the plastic frame glasses. But I understand. I don't want to be too critical, because what they've done with them is extremely impressive. So they have substantial batteries. They have 5 microphones. The new Ray-Ban one also has a display, a little heads-up display on the right lens, which apparently is super bright, works really well, and no one can see it when you're wearing it or using it, but you can see it just fine. Of course, there's speakers built in too, and it only weighs like 68 grams, which is funny because normal Ray-Bans, like without anything, just sunglasses, weigh like 47 grams. So these things are like not heavy, and you can apparently, they do look comfortable. I'll say that, because they don't have the wire pinch that you put on for your bridge of your nose. It's just the full plastic one, which is usually more comfortable for long term. And so this thing, connects up to your phone. It runs a bunch of like Meta apps, including Meta Maps. which is weird. So it doesn't run Google Maps. It has Meta Maps, which is,
Yeah, it doesn't.
okay.
It doesn't have any third-party apps currently, right? It's just
Right.
everything on it's built by Meta.
Yeah. But you can do things like queue up Spotify. You can do live translations with people, both
Mhm.
audio and with captions. You can record things, of course, take photos and videos. You can get directions and shows you places. You can use the AI abilities to, hey, what am I looking at, and explain stuff. And so the reactions from people said, like, this is kind of the first time that they're kind of really feeling like this is a turning point. But probably the biggest thing is it has a bracelet that you wear. It's a nice looking bracelet too. It's very low profile. It doesn't have a screen on it, but it detects, if anyone knows, like on Samsung watches, when you get a message in, you can like pinch your fingers and dismiss things, and Apple does this too, of course. It's like that, but like way more sophisticated. So you can use a ton of gestures. Like you can move your thumb around on your palm, like if you're holding an invisible joystick, and navigate things using like that. So it's like you can even have your hand like in your pocket, which looked really funny. Someone was doing, but like your hand. So it's not relying on the cameras on the glasses to see your hands and read that stuff. It's relying, the bracelet picks up the muscle movements from your tendons basically moving and interprets behavior that way. So you can do things like navigation, you can pinch, you can like just reach out and pinch and pretend to turn up an invisible volume knob, and it'll turn up the volume on the thing, which is pretty wild. And like this stuff works apparently really, really well, much better than most people had expected it would. Um, there's even in beta a way to basically type, which is like on your leg, you can just spell out the letters, write out the letters one by one, and it'll work on the screen. And I heard that one's a little funky, but also works way better than people like expected. And they said like you could be in a meeting and just kind of write little letters on your legs and just give quick hand responses to people for messages. Downside, $799, right? So most people aren't going to. We're just talking about how most people don't want to even buy a new laptop. We've been arguing forever that the Asus, was it the A14, the ZenBook A14 is one of my favorite laptops.
Mhm.
Went down to like $599, and people, still won't buy that. But $799 for glasses that can do all this stuff, is probably not a thing that most people will buy. But they will have them in Best Buy and a lot of like brick and mortar stores, so you can go try them out. But I feel like this is, I don't like Meta personally. I don't want to use. I'm on Facebook, but I always check in every couple months, and I always like it's weird. I get friend requests. I'm like, yeah, I'll accept you. You're going to be very disappointed because I don't post. I post like once a year, right? I just found it weird. But I'm not into Facebook. I only use WhatsApp for like my best friend because of his reasons. Um, so I don't really like them as a company, but I'll give them all the credit in the world that this is like a big advancement in the
Yeah.
absolute right direction versus what Microsoft was trying with HoloLens, which don't get me wrong, I think HoloLens was worthy of pursuit, but they also should have found a way to start from the basics, like with glasses for consumers, and work their way up in terms of sophistication. And they never did that. Alex Gibman never believed in that. He's like, no, we're going to take HoloLens and we'll do something with that. And that's the route Apple took with Vision Pro. They're like, we're going to make a $3,500 wearable computer that weighs a pound and a half, and it's going to replace your PC, that kind of thing. And it's like bombed. And okay, they'll make it lighter, they make it slightly cheaper. I think it's still not what consumers want. This I could see consumers wanting.
Yeah.
And so I think Meta is like got a great foot in the door for this to sort of set the bar. And now Apple is going to have to like work in reverse. Google and Microsoft have to be kicking themselves. I mean, especially Google. Right? I mean, they did literally start this with Google Glass
Yeah.
like a decade ago, and they just got so burned by it. They're like, no, never again. It's just like, oh my God, guys, like you could have.
Yeah.
Imagine if they continued tinkering with that. And didn't they buy North? Like
Yeah,
this
they
other
did.
company?
They bought North and did nothing with them.
Like they could have been tinkering this whole time with it and have this master product, and here comes Meta out of nowhere with this. Even
Yeah.
Snapchat is got to be like, damn, because like they just, like I said, the hand gesture stuff really impressed me, because right now we're
Yeah.
so used to this idea that you have to have your hands in front of you, and this doesn't do that. It's the way they came up with it, I think, is genius, because like
I,
it's going to use way less battery, you know.
Yeah, and I think for privacy reasons as well, it's preferred because obviously the
Yes.
biggest problem with most head tracking, most headsets or glasses tracking hand movement right now is that it uses cameras to do it. So it has to see what's in front of you and see your hands and see what your hands are doing, which a lot of people aren't comfortable with. With the
Right.
band, it doesn't do that. Although there are still cameras on the glasses, they're not used for the
Yes.
navigation and interacting with the
Right.
interface. They're just used for taking images and using AI to sort of see the world and tell you what's in front of you. I will say that you mentioned that they are a little bit bulky, and yeah, I guess they are a bit bulky, but compared to something like HoloLens, it's night and day. This
Oh
is
yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah.
these
Like I
are
said,
I think
69
most people,
grams.
yeah,
Like,
most people won't notice these as being anything other than just a thick pair of sunglasses. I think they look
right.
great for what they can do, and a lot of
Yeah.
people have even said the display has been embedded in such a way that you can't see that there's a display unless you're wearing the glasses.
Right.
All these other sort of glasses with built-in displays, because this isn't technically new. We have seen them from the likes of obviously Android XR is here, but there's other ones. I can't, the names are escaping
Well,
me
North
now.
was one of them that did
North,
it.
but yeah, and then there's also like the tethered ones from the likes of X-Real and whatnot, where they do have glasses
Yes.
with built-in displays. But you can see that they've got displays in the lenses, and you can often usually see, like
Right.
it flickering or lighting up when you're just facing the person as they wear them. These apparently don't. You can't see the display unless you're actually wearing the device, and I think it's only got one display. I think it's in the right
Yes.
lens.
Right side.
I'm assuming eventually in the version 2 or version 3 they'll have more displays in both of them.
And they also switch. They also go from clear to sunglasses.
Yeah. So you can see the display outside as well. So if it's sunny, you can still see the pop-ups and whatnot. And this is the first step towards, a pair of glasses that just gives you a heads-up display. If notification comes in, yep, I can see it. I can dismiss it using my thumb or whatever, using the wrist. I think this is really cool. These are the first pair of glasses that I would be interested in buying if they were available in the UK. As far as I'm aware, I believe this is just going to be US only for now. But yeah, I'm really interested in the software it's running. I don't know if they said if it's running Android or some sort of custom firmware. I'm assuming it's Android, but I'm not too sure what it's running.
Yeah, I'm not too sure either.
But yeah, I think this looks great, and this is what Microsoft should have been working on with HoloLens, as we already said. But also, just remember, most of the HoloLens team left Microsoft for Meta, so a lot of
Right.
this is the HoloLens that they were probably going to work on had they stuck around at Microsoft. So this is really interesting to see, and I do wonder. I can't imagine Microsoft is interested in anything like this now. But if Microsoft wants, because Meta's calling these AI-powered display glasses,
Right.
I believe.
Yeah.
If Microsoft really wants Copilot to be a real competitor in AI, surely they must be considering AI hardware like this. We've seen experiments from the Humane AI pin and that other weird thing, the whatever it was called, the orange thing, and now we've seen. I think smart glasses are the first real viable use case for AI, I think, because they're already integrated in our lives already. Lots of people have to wear glasses because to literally see. Other people prefer to wear them as a fashion choice or because it's sunny outside. And so integrating AI into these, I think, makes the most sense more than anything else. Surely, if Microsoft wants Copilot to be a real competitor, they have to be considering a product like this, some sort of wearable Copilot device. Although, if they're not, what are we doing here? Well, what is Microsoft's end goal for AI? Why are we even pretending that Copilot's a competitor if they're not considering hardware? Because to be in this industry, you will have to build hardware. I think Steve Jobs has that quote, which I'm going to misquote here, but I'm sure it's something along the lines of, if you want to build great software, you have to build great hardware, or whatever it is. That applies to AI. If you want to build a great AI tool, a great AI assistant, you need to build a hardware platform for it to exist on. You can't just build software and call it a day. That's not going to work. Meta could have easily just been like, we'll build some glasses and we'll hire Microsoft Copilot to be the AI system. No, they built their own AI. Of course they did. Everyone's going to do that. And so can Microsoft really survive with Copilot if they're not going to invest in hardware? Do you think we'll see Copilot hardware down, or do you think Microsoft are just idiots?
I think it's too late,
Yeah.
But yeah, this could have been,
Is
We
it
won't
too
bring
late
up
though?
the. I don't know. I mean, it
Because
depends
this is
where they
new.
are. It would depend
Yeah,
on where they are in R
yeah,
and D because this was like showed off a year ago as like a prototype,
that's right. Yeah,
which and they've been already working on it for a couple of years now. If Microsoft has something in the works already in some advanced stages, yeah, no, absolutely, they plenty of time. Um, but if they're just like not doing anything and they're like, oh, maybe we should try, now it's too late.
yeah.
And I'll say one thing, I'll give again credit to Meta is that they teamed up with a company like Ray-Ban and
Yes, yeah, it's very smart.
there's a couple other ones, right? Oakley, I
Oakley?
think they're also
Yeah,
doing Oakley.
yeah.
So like you're buying not Razor, Ray-Ban glasses, which people are familiar with, one of the most popular brands. You're buying Oakley again, same thing, right? These are major brands that are powered by Meta's technology, and that's a very different play. It undermines Meta's marketing abilities as a consumer product, but at least they were smart enough to recognize that
Yeah.
and not try to release these like if you look at the spectacles there from Snapchat, right? Like they didn't really do that first. It was just like it's under their brand,
Hmm.
um, and I think that probably hurt them. But these, like if you go to Ray-Ban's website and look up the Meta stuff, there's like I don't know, like 5 or 10 versions of the glasses you can get, the older versions,
It seems to sell well.
and they do sell well, even though
Mhm.
they're a couple $100. They're like between $300 and $500, I think. So this steps up that, but I think that partnership is brilliant, and Microsoft would need to do that too. But like now you're getting into the whole thing like they had with Windows Phone. Like, why would Ray-Ban
Mm.
and Oakley partner up with Microsoft at this point? Like, what is Microsoft going to bring to the table? How could they possibly not only just compete with and match Meta, but actually beat them, right? And have something new.
Yeah,
Like,
but this is the mindset Microsoft can't have. They can't think that way as a business, I don't think. They have to think that they can compete. They have to want to compete because otherwise, Microsoft has backed the entire company behind Copilot and
dude, they're
AI at this
gonna
point.
they would release these and it'll be like the earbuds, the Surface earbuds when they came out, where we
Yeah,
were like, oh, those are actually kind of cool. They're kind of neat. They're at least different looking. They didn't look like AirPods. And they're
yeah.
like, and you can control your PowerPoint presentations with them. It's like, what?
They're so uncool. It's not even funny.
Yeah, and they probably do that with these glasses. Like you can go into Word and do
Yeah,
this, and that'd
don't
be
do
like Nadella would be like rubbing his hands, like, yeah,
that.
brilliant. And like, how does Azure work into this, right? They don't have the mindset to release
Yeah.
something like this and knowing what consumers want. I think that's really frustrating. Like
Well,
maybe the AI team does, but with and if Panos was around,
it'd
I
be
would be
different.
like,
Yeah.
well, maybe,
Yeah. Yeah.
he
Yeah.
knows he'd probably have some cool ideas, but that's all those people are gone. Hell,
Mhm.
all the Windows Phone people are pretty much gone. Like
Oh, yeah.
they were the only team that ever really understood kind of what consumers were at least interested in. Like
Mhm.
you could say that Windows Phone bombed and all this kind of stuff, but damn it, like that the fans are still hardcore fans. Like they
Mhm.
at least did win those people over. So yeah, I think it's too late.
I will say that if Microsoft can't figure this out and they can't get behind some sort of hardware story for their Copilot efforts, Copilot will crash and burn. Like, and Microsoft is, I'm sure
I think
Microsoft will always exist as an enterprise company, but they will just, and I know this has been a thing that has been said for a decade now, but this will be more true
IBM.
than ever. They will become an IBM company. They will just be the next
People love saying that.
IBM.
I think their strength is still that Copilot works so well on PC, and their services. And in fact, like Copilot has had significant growth. They're bigger than Perplexity and stuff like that, and they've been gaining ground. And they're only still like 5%, but they're bigger than Grok and stuff. Like, so they do benefit from that. And Meta doesn't really have anything. Like, there's no way Meta can integrate as much as they can into like Windows to the level that Copilot is going to integrate. But you're right in the sense that there's no reason why Copilot also couldn't exist in consumer wearables and other technologies and phones and all that kind of stuff with the same level of success had they not burned all their bridges in the past. But
Mhm.
now Copilot probably is just restricted to being the dominant AI on Windows and Microsoft services, and then that's it, right? So
That's That sucks if that's
And
where you're
Samsung TVs.
yeah, and Xbox consoles. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, if that's really where Microsoft is happy to sort of settle when it comes to Copilot, that's a real shame because there's so much more you can do with AI than just it be a 2D sort of avatar on a display on a computer. There's the
You know what sucks
possibilities are
too?
endless. Go on.
It's like, like these are not just being sold as like AI glasses. Like the real pitch that they're making is this is going to replace the
Right.
smartphone.
That's what I'm thinking. Like this could have been Microsoft's
Yeah,
re-entry.
right. So like that's
But
now. Now these things are nowhere near a replacement for a smartphone at this
not
stage. In
yet.
fact, it's completely almost
Yeah.
reliant a lot of times on your
Mhm.
smartphone. But that's literally what they're saying that this will become.
It will
They
be,
may be
yeah.
right. I'm not 100% convinced that's true, but I think there's a strong chance for it. There's definitely a strong chance for it being a major product line, right?
Yes.
Um, but yeah, you're right. I mean, had Microsoft thought about this, then they could have been making these glasses and be like, "That's our way. We're really leapfrogging the whole
Right.
phone thing, and we're going to this point." Although Bill Gates recently just came out and said the next smartphone is going to be these like embeddable electronic tattoos that have been talked about for years. I don't
That
know
show
about that.
Upload we've watched. I like how the phones are embedded in that world. There, you hold your hand out, and
Oh
where you
yeah,
can make like an L shape with your thumb and finger. That's where the screen is. So how you your screen
right.
size is dependent on how big your hand is. But I love it. I think it's such a great idea. And you just close your wrist and the screen goes away. I think that's really cool. I'd like that to be real. Unfortunately, it probably never will be. But with the glasses, by the way, it's worth noting that Apple is rumored to be entering this market at some point. I believe by end of next year or early 2027, they will have a pair of Apple glasses with cameras built in, no display, just the cameras. And then maybe 2028, 2029, Apple will have their own, just like what Meta announced today, glasses with a display built in. So this clearly is a market that has legs. And I think, like I said, this goes back to AI. If you're a company building AI, you have to be considering hardware to sort of highlight or just to make your AI assistant more capable, because it's so limited to a display. It can do so much more with wearable, with ambient computing that Windows on its own currently is not capable of doing. And so, yeah, I think you're right, Dan. I think Microsoft probably isn't working on any of this, and they're just sort of riding the coattails of Office and Copilot productivity and OpenAI and eventually Apple and whoever, Google, Gemini, and Meta is going to leapfrog them. Because my thinking is, why if you do use another AI assistant like OpenAI or Gemini, whatever it is you choose to use, and you have your entire life in that AI, why would you be inclined or want to use Copilot for something else? Why wouldn't you just use the AI you use,
I
the
mean,
AI that
right.
knows you to
But
do all of
it
the
works
stuff you want
reverse
to do?
too. Like I'm one of the people like I pay for Copilot Pro. I use the memory feature. Like the other day, I was asking about snowblowers because I'm interested in getting one, and I was asking what's the difference between the electric and gasoline ones, and it was giving me
Mhm.
that. And then it was just like, for winters in Worcester, Massachusetts, this one would actually work really well because and it's like I didn't tell it that I was in Worcester. Granted, Microsoft has that info, right? Because of billing and all that kind of stuff. But it knew that not only as I was in Worcester, but to bring it up and like tailored the snow blowers that I should be looking at to the weather we typically get here. I was like, damn, that was pretty cool. That was kind of weird. Like, so like but like because of that, like I'm so into Copilot. I like its UI. I like its app. I'm using it. I'm always in front of a PC, so it's all I'm using. So yeah, there's really no way like ChatGPT and Gemini definitely have some amazing abilities, and I have Grok in my car. But the idea that I'm going to switch to those is probably won't happen, because of. But your point stands. There's probably way more people on Open in ChatGPT who won't switch to Copilot than people on Copilot won't switch to
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying.
GPT.
Like, I feel
Yeah,
like there's no allegiance to Copilot. Nobody's like, oh, I'm tied to Copilot. I can't leave Copilot. Especially if there is eventually a market of AI hardware that is so alluring and beneficial to the user. You know, if you buy, say, the glasses, that they do open up your world. You now have a heads-up display. You can learn about anything at any time. Whereas on Copilot, if I want to learn about something using Copilot, I have to pull out my phone, open the app, open the vision mode, and press the picture button. You know, whereas I'm wearing ambient glasses, I can just be like, "Hey, Meta, what the hell am I looking at?" And it can just talk, and you can just, just talk to it or whatever it is you're going to do with AI. I don't know. I just think Microsoft sucks and they need to be more on the ball when it comes to this sort of thing. And unfortunately, they're not. I don't know why we hope Microsoft will change and they never do. We're like, yeah, maybe with the next category, like they'll finally sort of find their footing. Nope, they just don't bother. They don't bother.
It's true. It's what happens when you have too many nerds running the company.
Yeah. I'd like
Don't
to
get me
see.
wrong, nerds have some great ideas, but you always need some cool people to be like, listen, come on, man.
That's why Steve,
This is what you get.
Steve Jobs
This is
works
what
so
you
well
got to
at
make.
Apple, I think.
Yeah, it's true. Steve Jobs is definitely not cool, but
but he wasn't a nerd either. Let's be real.
True. Yeah, he's just a jerk.
Here's what I will say about Microsoft's current leadership is that I think it's time for a shakeup. I know that makes no sense if you're a shareholder and Microsoft is doing the best they've ever done. I get it. Yes, as a company that makes money, they're in a great place. But as a company that innovates and is likable and aspirational to use their product / work for, they're not there right now. I think, if anything, Microsoft is in a really bad place right now in regards to all of the big tech companies and employee morale and the quality of products and just everything in general. It is poor right now, I think.
I mean, they don't even really advertise Copilot, as far as I know. I've never seen a commercial for it.
Right. Well, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't think it would hurt the company to start seeking out some fresh faces at the top, including and again, look, I know Satya Nadella has done a great job for the last 10 years of making lots of money. It wouldn't hurt to get someone new in at this point. I think I'm ready to start saying that. Time to get some fresh faces in, and because it would be nice to see Microsoft do something different and try to be innovative again and change the world and be ambitious. It feels like they're not ambitious anymore, Microsoft.
Like even Google had that, I forgot what they called it, but they have that part of the company that does experiments and
Google Labs, I think.
Yeah, and it's not expected to really make money, and they
Right.
should have to make these consumer products, they have to be willing to be listen, we're not going to really make a profit on this probably for a while, but we believe in putting it out there. I mean, that's kind of what Surface was in a way, but
we have all the money in the world. We can afford to lose some of it doing this. Come on.
Well, it's just we know that they have to be regretting. I mean, Nadella says he regrets canceling Windows Phone because now
it's up to
they
him
don't have a place to put all their AI.
Hey, it's company-wide email, all hands on deck, we're building a new phone. But he won't do that, so I don't care what he says about his regrets.
Right. Yeah.
It's all words.
It's true. Anyway, let's wrap it up for the podcast this week. I won't be around next week, I don't think, unless I can maybe record a brief segment while I'm in Hawaii. But Zach, if he chooses, can do the podcast, and we'll see about talking about what Qualcomm's announcements were and those new chips and all that. But pay attention to our news feed. We expect stuff. I believe the summit's Tuesday, I think Tuesday through Thursday. So it'll be a couple of days of news coming out there and stuff like that. But we'll have a lot of information about those new chips and what they mean. Hopefully, we'll also have some information about when they ship, because that's still the big question Zach and I have. It doesn't seem like right now that we're going to get new Surface devices in October, which is a shame. It's only been a few times that Microsoft has missed the October timeframe for launching Surface, but it looks like these things may not launch until spring. But hopefully we'll get some more clarification there. Otherwise, though, hit us up on Twitter, Blue Sky, or Threads, and you can follow us there. Otherwise, we record this every Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel. You can go watch it there. I think we're also starting to get into the habit of turning some of these into shorter clips, so hopefully you guys will see those. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Okay, cool. If there's any questions in the chat, please do feel free to put them in and we'll hang around and answer them. If there are no questions, we will leave.
On Qualcomm, should one wait before getting new chips, or the current gen will do? I mean, I guess part of it really depends on your workload, but honestly, like we're kind of talking about this last week too, because I have that new Surface Laptop 7 Anniversary Edition, which I freaking love. And so, like, yeah, there'll be new chips coming out. I'll have to stop using this laptop. Is there is there anything I'm suffering with on this laptop at the moment? No, it's like it's totally fast. I have no complaints about the performance. In fact, it's one of the more performant ones. I've said this before. ARM on Windows, in my opinion, runs faster than Intel and AMD. And the battery life's fantastic, and I love the hardware. So if I weren't reviewing or taking a look at new laptops here and there, I'd be totally fine sticking with the new Surface laptop. So if you're, unless you're doing like extreme stuff or you're working on AI and all that kind of thing, I think you'd be totally fine at picking up some of the newer laptops that are much more affordable now, and go that route. Because yeah, okay, these, again, it depends. Like, do you game a lot, or do you want to game on these things? Because like, I imagine the new ones are going to obviously be faster and probably have better GPU performance. I don't really game though, so it's like I don't really care about that. So it's just like my thing is like, how much faster could my web browser, Slack, and Telegram go? Like, I don't know. So if you're like that, then I would say get something now.
Yeah, that's my recommendation. If you're the majority of people, the current chips are fantastic, and there's no need to wait.
Yeah, the Surface Pro 11 is amazing. The 12-inch one is great with it too. I still, the ZenBook A14 is amazing. Yeah, and HP just is releasing this new EliteBook, which is a EliteBook 6, so it's a mid-tier type laptop, right? So that's literally just coming out now, which probably tells me also that the new Qualcomm stuff isn't shipping in the next 2 months. But yeah, and you don't even need to get the X Elite chip. Like if you're really concerned, like you really want performance, the X Elite is great. But I run the X Plus on a lot of hardware, and it's been fantastic. I have no complaints about the X Plus.
So any updated info on what BR_release might be for, since I keep hearing it's tied to Windows and ARM? As far as I'm aware, BR_release will not ship to production in any capacity. It's just part of the pipeline of testing Canary, because there will be a BR sign off at some point. But as far as I'm aware, all of the stuff that they're working on that's dependent on ARM, it will be backported to GE, to 25H2, 24H2. I would be very surprised if there are PCs next year that ship with a BR_release. Yeah,
I feel like they're done with that. I don't see how much. The only optimizations they really need to do left is like Prism, improving that.
Yeah, I think there are some things that just need to be done on the platform level, but Microsoft has already publicly said that they're going to bring that to the current version of Windows 11. There's no need for it to be on a new platform release. So yeah, I'd be very surprised if come this time next year, well maybe not this time, but if in the spring next year there is a platform release that's shipping on BR on Bromine, is it? And then we've also got 25H2 on Germanium. I think that would be insane if they end up doing that. I don't think it will happen. So there's no refresh to the Surface Pro 13-inch. Hasn't it been 18 months? Sorry, no, there will be a new Surface Pro at some point. It's just dependent on when Qualcomm's chips are available for Microsoft to put into their devices to ship. We just currently don't know the timeline for things. So we'll hopefully know more next week. Snapdragon, Qualcomm will announce, X Elite 2, whatever it's called. They will hopefully give us a timeline for when PCs with these chips will start shipping, and that will give us a good idea as to when the next Surface Pro and Surface Laptop will be announced / available. I would assume Microsoft will want to be one of the first to announce with the new chip.
Right.
And so that will give us a timeline. There will be a new Surface Pro 13-inch with likely an updated design with, the sort of similar Surface Pro 12-inch chassis design
Also,
features.
For the record, it hasn't been 18 months. It's been 14 months.
Right. Yeah. So yeah,
But it will
could
be
end up being
probably.
18 months.
Yeah, it'll probably end up being 18 months. But yeah,
Yeah.
which they've done before. It's not unheard of. But and like I said, if you have a Pro 11 right now, or you want to buy a Pro 11 right now, like it's still
Great.
awesome.
Yeah.
It's got amazing performance and amazing battery life. Like it's kind of the perfect surface. I think they'll, as Zach said, they're going to improve things. They're going to make it more like the 12-inch, and hopefully, I hope they put the pen on the back, that kind of stuff. But like these aren't like game-changing features. They're just niceties to have. So
Do we think any upcoming Copilot Plus PC features will be gated for newer chips only? No, I don't think so. That would be shocking if Microsoft does that immediately out of the gate with
right,
second gen chips. I don't think so. I think Microsoft is already getting a lot of heat for the Windows 11's high system requirements already. I think bumping system requirements for Copilot Plus PCs straight away would be bad.
although they might have new features that launch with the new Qualcomm chips.
Yeah, but
Initially.
they will still be runnable on the
Right.
existing
I'm
chips.
saying right. I'm saying though they release with the new Qualcomm chips,
Sure,
and then
yeah.
they backport to the older ones in
Mhm.
3 to 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Just to give that sort of
Because as far as I'm
new
aware, that
polish.
none of the existing Copilot Plus features are maxing out the NPU. Like they're not
Right.
super intensive, so I think it should be fine. I think the 40 top NPU requirement gave Microsoft a lot of headroom in regards to building features out in the future.
I bet Qualcomm comes out, hits like 72 tops next or something.
Nice. Great.
Like,
That means I can run
cool.
2 recalls side by side.
Yeah.
Cheers. Is Windows and ARM like Intel where 32GB might be better? RAM is treated the same across the architectures. It's more down to how Windows treats RAM. It depends on your workflow. I think I'm in the camp where 16 gig is fine for a lot of people, but it is now the limiting, like it is the bare minimum at this point. Like I find myself 90% utilization on a laptop with 16 gigs of RAM versus 32 gig, or even 24 gig is my ideal. I think I wrote an editorial saying 24 gig is actually great. Like everyone should go for 24 gig because it gives you headroom. You won't be using all of it, and when you do need more RAM, it's there for you. Whereas 32 gig I think is overkill for a lot of people. Most people don't need 32 gig, but 16 is like the bare minimum now. So it's like 32 gigabyte will be better, yeah, but will you use all 32 gigs of RAM? I don't know. I don't know what your workflow is. I know I certainly don't use 32 gigs of RAM on any PC, even when I'm editing video. Okay, with that, we will probably head off. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back. Well, we might be back next week. We'll see how things go in regards to the Qualcomm Summit and whatnot. But until then, we will see you when we see you. Bye-bye.